Council. If you would, please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance, and Councilmember Yakowicz will then give our invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Dear God, we thank you for and continue to pray for your love, patience, forgiveness, blessings, guidance, mercy, and grace. Amen.
Amen. Tony Keener is our clerk on duty this evening. Tony, would you please call the roll?
Are you there?
Mm-hmm. Tony is on mute.
Sorry, I was having some technical difficulties. Shaw?
Here.
Yakowicz?
Present.
Neese?
Here.
Ewalt?
Here.
Joy?
Present.
Chiriki?
I am here.
Purinton? She has been excused for the evening. Boyette?
Here.
Brown?
Here.
Mayor Cole?
I am here. I'm here, and Councilmember Purinton, who is excused, has sent me a text saying I think she had knee surgery, and that's went very well. So we wish her the very best. She also said that she will be watching tonight, which shows that her mental state may not be entirely correct, but that's okay. Well, we'll forgive her this one time.
I've got you, Penny. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Councilmember Ronning is here. All right, thank you very much. Before we get into our minutes, we do have an informational update on COVID-19 situation from Melanie Schwartz, City Administrator Chris Kukulski. Do you have anything to introduce before we turn it over to Melanie?
I do not. We can turn it over to Melanie, and thank you, Melanie. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I appreciate you having me again tonight. Just a quick update, and then I'll answer any questions that you might have. We are in our third week of just kind of doing regular vaccinations at our 3 sites, which are Billings Clinic, St. Vincent, and Riverstone Health. We did get our doses of vaccine in this week, 975 at both hospitals, and Riverstone did get a slight increase this week to 700, so that's exciting. We did get an extra 975 that we will be using for our first community vaccine site, which will start next Tuesday, I believe. Tuesday or Wednesday. We're still working through those final details. That is kind of the big news of the day is we are going to be going to a community site. So Riverstone and St. Vincent will be joining to do a larger vaccine clinic for the healthcare workers and first responders, and also anybody that's in the 1B priority group. So that's people over 70 and people that are medically compromised in those certain situations. We will be doing additional press work this week to get out how you can schedule for the community clinic, and also how you will it will be all done by appointment still, so people will be scheduling into that community clinic. And then also just to let you know, Billings Clinic is going to continue to offer vaccinations for our community at their site as well. Our numbers are looking really good. Our hospitalization numbers are coming down. Our case numbers are coming down. I think if you saw John Felton's press conference earlier today, he gave many of those updates, and those numbers are looking good for Yellowstone County. They also, I hope you guys are kind of watching that state site that shows how much vaccine is coming into Yellowstone County and how many people are getting vaccinated in our county, but also in the state, because that is the key number for maximizing the number of people vaccinated in our county to get us maybe back to some normalcy towards the end of the year. The hospitalizations are looking good. Like I said, both hospitals their numbers are coming down slightly for hospitalizations with COVID-19 patients. I did add a new website for you guys to look at this week. It's coming from the National Bio, which is the Biotechnology Innovation Organization. They do a really nice job of explaining kind of the national perspective of supply and demand on the vaccine. So I did add that for you for this week in your weekly briefing. That's about all that I have for this evening. So I would be happy to take any questions, and hopefully I can answer them, or I can find you the answer if not.
Thank you very much, Melanie. Are there any questions for Melanie Schwartz? Councilmember Ronning?
Thank you. Melanie, I've received some communication from people that are confused about the difference between registering for the vaccination on one of the hospital's websites and attempting to get through by phone call. Do you need to do both?
Thank you for the question, Mayor and Councilmember Ronning. You do not need to do both. All the sites have both available. So there is a phone number they can call in, and then people are also using their electronic medical chart to register for a vaccine as well. So both Billings Clinic and St. V's, if you're a patient of theirs and you have an electronic medical record, you can also get your vaccine scheduled via that. So then you can also do it via the phone. So both work. And I know people are trying both, in an attempt to get there, but it really is just not enough appointments available at this time. But yes, both work. It's just which one gets you through to get the appointment.
Thank you very much. Any other questions for Melanie? Melanie, I don't see any. So thank you very much. And we'll see you in another 2 weeks.
Thank you. Enjoy your evening.
Okay, thank you. Our next item of business are our minutes. Tonight we have three different minutes from three different meetings, December 14, January 11, and January 25. Let's take those in order and separately. The first one is the meeting minutes of December 14th, 2020. Here, let me just make an introductory comment. Councilmember Purington had a conversation a week or two ago with Tony, who's on the line with us here, and asked that on page 8, there was a sentence that said, Councilmember Purington's, quoting now, Councilmember Purington stated she did not agree with the idea that garages with front approaches were safer than other styles. And apparently she requested that that be removed. I can't say exactly the background or the why, but looking at it, I don't see that it's material to any result or vote or anything like that. So if that was her preference, I guess my inclination would be to remove that, and just to keep it moving along, I will make the motion for approval of the December 14th minutes with the removal of that one sentence on page 8. And Tony, I'll just ask you, since you had the conversation, have I characterized that request correctly?
Yes, that's great.
Okay. And Councilmember Ewald has 2 fingers up for a second on the motion. Any discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor, Councilmember Ronning.
Thank you. Mayor Cole, you weren't on. So prior to the council meeting starting, I did ask that Tony or Denise let council know what the guidelines are and what the rules are for having adjustments made to the minutes. So just so you know. So I did ask, and Tony's going to follow up with that. Great.
Thank you. And just so you know, I spoke with Denise on that topic today. And the way I see it is these are the staff's minutes. And so if they would like to make adjustments and individual council members want them to make adjustments, they can discuss that with the clerk. But if a copy has been distributed to the whole council, we're going to need a motion to make a specific change unless that new version has been distributed. In this case, it wasn't. Hence, I think it's appropriate to have a specific motion in this case that includes that amendment. So any other discussion before we go to a vote? Councilmember Neese.
I'm sorry, are we approving all the minutes or just the one that you were mentioning?
Just that one, December 14th.
Thank you.
So all in favor of the motion, which is for approval, December 14, 2020 meeting minutes, please raise your hand. Voting in favor are council members, all council members. Thank you very much. Next minutes are from our January 11th meeting. Is there a motion or a discussion? Councilmember Boyette.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that we approve the minutes for January 11th as read.
Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Shaw. Is there any discussion? Don't see any. All in favor of the motion for approval, please raise your hand. Voting in favor are all members of the City Council. Motion passes unanimously. Next are our meeting minutes of January 25, 2021. Is there a motion or discussion? Councilmember Joy.
I move we approve the January 25th, 2021 minutes.
And is there a second? Second by Councilmember Boyette. Discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Voting in favor, all members of the council. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Council courtesies, I'll begin us there by just commenting, it's very cold outside. So I hope everybody takes appropriate precautions. I also had some communication with people involved with running our shelters. With weather going down as low as 25 below this week, our homeless population are at grave risk. And I was assured that there are rooms available at the shelters and people are working hard to get extra meals and rides, transportation for anybody who needs help. And also we received communications from Billings Police Department, Billings Fire Department that they are available and often get involved with those transfers for anybody who wants shelter. So if you know of a problem or know of somebody who needs that assistance, please don't hesitate to reach out to those who run our shelters, for which we're very much appreciated, or the Billings Police Department and Fire Department. Other council courtesies this evening. Are there any other council member Neese?
Thank you, Mayor. As we saw, we passed the Heights, the Castle Rock Master Plan last business session, and the next day, the council members received a letter just indicating that the Heights Optimist Club has donated $3,500 to that park, and I just want to recognize them for doing that. They also indicated in that release that you can go to the, the Parks Foundation, which is the pfbbillings.org, and make additional donations there for Castle Rock Park or any other park that may be on their list. So I appreciate the Heights Optimist Club for donating that and starting off the donations there. So thank you.
Thank you. And thanks to the Optimists. Any other council courtesies? Not seeing any. We do not have any proclamations. Are there any council reports from organizations that council members serve on behalf of the city? Councilmember Joy.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The CBD, the Community Development Board, met again this last week on Tuesday, and the COVID CARES Act money is still a part of a deep and kind of difficult conversation about how that should be spent, because that money isn't allowed to be used for any kind of duplication. So there are a lot of conditions that are attached to how that money can be spent. And so the CBD board is being cautious and careful and trying to look for the best way to spend that money, and at the same time, not get into a situation of duplication or something that isn't appropriate for that money. So thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other council reports? Seeing none, then we'll move on to our city administrator reports. Chris Kukulski.
Mayor and council, I do have about 6 various items here to work through. I'll try to do that quickly. First and foremost, congratulations. I know you received the email, but Gina Dahl has been selected as our permanent city attorney. She's been in that acting role, but has been doing it short-staffed since Brent's retirement. So we look forward to getting her team fully staffed, and welcome Gina officially in this capacity. So she's here with us tonight, and we'll continue into the future. So thank you and congratulations, Gina. Secondly, was asked, we did have a very unfortunate several things last week, but the most recent being our fire engine that had turned over. Most importantly, those 3 firefighters who were in that engine are all, they did not sustain any serious long-term injuries, and they are doing fine. As for equipment, as one of our council members was sharing with us earlier, people are the most important things, and sometimes the equipment doesn't fare so well. So we will be talking to you about that truck replacement. We won't get into those details tonight, but just 2 weeks from tonight, we will be talking to you about the truck and where it's at. Third up is your council photo. So I think we're going to have to play it a little bit by ear. I believe everybody was available except for maybe not Pam Purington, depending upon her recovery. So I thought we would Monday morning, mid-morning, make the call as if Councilmember Purington is feeling up to coming, we can get it taken care of next Monday night, 5:30 at the studio. If she's not, there were a few of you who can't make the next week. So we'll have to work schedules, I guess, via email in that regard. So let's take it one step at a time and see if we can pull it off. It is the holiday, but I think it actually worked out well for most people for that photo next Monday evening. Okay, next up, legislative update. So please don't dismiss this to mean nothing's going on at the legislature, because boy, there is. We don't have any hearings though this week to speak of to line out people to testify. And now that could change by tomorrow morning, but we don't. But I want to draw to your attention. I'm going to try to share my screen here. I'm sorry, Tony, I didn't get a chance to try. Can everybody see my screen there?
Yes.
Okay, so this is LC 3268. LC 3268 is the bill we've been working on. It's pretty straightforward, but this third red paragraph is the draft language. We'll be finishing out the draft with the drafting folks this week. In essence, it says, if a defendant is sentenced to prison, other place of confinement operated by or under contract with the Department of Corrections or committed to the department, and the department does not accept delivery of that defendant within 5 days of oral pronouncement of the sentence, the department shall notify the court in writing of the reason for the delay. Before you all as attorneys start rewriting the language, please understand, A, it's draft. B, they're deliberately using language that's currently in statutes. And I'm going to stop sharing so everybody see. The goal here is very straightforward. The goal is to, once a prisoner is fully adjudicated through the court system, move them on to the state's incarceration or treatment facilities, because pre-pandemic, they were occupying about 80 beds in our local jail. During pandemic, about 130 beds in our jail. So that's not a unique problem to Billings. When I was gone 2 weeks ago, I was meeting with a group of sheriffs around the state who were with us in the meeting who have a similar challenge. So that is one of many mechanisms we're trying to do to help the criminal justice system here and help our officers have some options. I'll be glad to answer any questions there. I actually don't have any other legislative update unless you have questions for me. Thank you.
Questions, Councilmember Neese and Councilmember Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. Chris, while that looks like they have to notify us, it doesn't look like they have to actually do any action. Is there any penalty for them, doubling of the rate or something like that they have to do if they don't remove the inmate to leave room for the others?
So we had two components of conversation. One was to increase the fee for staying. The other was to mandate a hearing or have as an option of a hearing in front of the judge by choice. The preliminary feedback is if either of those two are included, this will probably be dead on arrival by entities who will not. The courts are already got plenty going on, so we wanted that to be an option, but there's some anxiety there. I don't know that we've given up totally on the cost incentive piece, but Amy and Greg are working with partners on that to figure out if any language to that effect is going to stay or not.
Great, thanks.
Thank you very much. Councilor Brown?
Asked and answered, Mayor.
Thank you. Other questions for Chris?
I do have, I'm sorry, Mayor, a couple more items after the legislative report. Anything else on legislative report? Okay, so two more quickly. These ones are specific to tonight's agenda. So now we get into the consent agenda. The easier one of the two, well, they're actually both pretty straightforward. So 1A, that is the appointment of Jeff Engel to the Heights Water District representing the city. As I mentioned before the meeting, have had a little flurry of legal emails and activity this afternoon. Bottom line is there seems to be clearly a disagreement between the Heights Water District and the city as to our appointment. It is our belief, Gina could answer any questions for you, that this is our appointee representing the city. This is your call, not theirs. So we would like you to move forward tonight with the appointment and not delay that appointment. And we'll move from there. The second item is item 1D, and that is the Amen Park Development Council. I had promised Mike Mayotte, and I had that he would be given a few minutes. He needs, he says, not more than about 5 minutes to give you the highlights of their accomplishments over this past year. So I'd like to give him that window. He's here. You can either separate it, or after you make your motion on consent, we don't need anything changed. He just wants to highlight from you the really great work that they've been doing in partnership with the city there. So that makes up my administrative report.
Chris,
Yes.
would you like to remind council about the holiday on Monday and the executive session?
Thank you very much. So about two things there. Next Monday is a holiday, so our council meeting is on Tuesday. Hopefully the photo will stay on Monday. And then secondly, I'm sorry, Tony, you just gave it to me. What was that second one?
The executive session will be at 4:30.
Executive session. And and I'm assuming we were able to confirm that executive session at 4:30. I think that'll be good to get that update on legal activity there when you're fresh rather than at the end of the meeting. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Chris? On the Amen Park Development Council, we can address that when we get to the consent agenda. But we'll, I'm sure, ask Mike to present his report. Okay, don't see anything else, so we'll move ahead then with public comment on non-public hearing items. For anybody who's a member of the public and listening, who'd like to comment on any item this evening, the phone number is 237-6196. This is the opportunity to comment on anything that is on our consent agenda, which is item 1, because there will not be a public hearing on any of these items. The only thing that's on our agenda that has a public hearing will be our sole item, which is item number 2, which is the revised ordinance on dental amalgam. So if you're a dentist out there and you want to comment, wait. But if you want to comment on anything else, this is your opportunity by calling 237-6196. Do that right now for anything on our consent agenda. We'll ask that you keep your comments to less than 3 minutes, that you tell us your name and your address up front, and please mute or turn off your screen, your computer or your television, because our actual meeting is about a minute ahead of what you're hearing. And it'll be very confusing for all of us if you do not turn off what you're listening to the meeting on. The number again, 237-6196. We'll give just a few seconds because of that delay to see whether anybody calls in. Tony, please tell us if anybody calls in the next few seconds. We'll go ahead with council. I don't hear any.
Everyone, thank you for your call. You have reached the public comment period for tonight's city council meeting. You will have 3 minutes in which to give your comment. May I have your name and address, please?
Randy Hafer at 702 North 23rd Street.
Go ahead, Randy.
Mayor and Council, I'd like to speak for just a few seconds on consent item 1C, which is the downtown traffic study. For those of us that have been involved in downtown for the last 25 years, it's super exciting to see that this traffic study has potential to move forward. And it's, of course, primarily dealing with the one-way to two-way conversions, but also some road diets. This has been a long-term priority of downtown property owners and business owners, and I just really encourage you to move this thing forward. I think that there's a lot of exciting things that can happen if we have a traffic system downtown that makes a little more sense than it currently does. So thank you very much.
Thank you for your call.
Thank you. Tony, do we have anyone else who's called 237-6196?
I do not have any other calls.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll close the public comment period on non-public hearing items and move on to our consent agenda item number 1. Do we have separations this evening of specific items for a separate vote? Councilmember Ewalt and then Brown. Councilmember Ewalt, you're muted.
I'd like to separate 1G, please.
Item 1G, the BUFSA agreement funding formula.
Yep.
Thank you. Councilmember Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be abstaining from 101.
101. Thank you very much. Any other separations? Councilmember Neese.
I'll be abstaining from 1B2, and I'd like to separate item C, 1C.
Separation of item 1C, downtown Billings traffic study. And Councilmember Neese will be abstaining from item 1B2, missing sidewalk / miscellaneous.
And that reason for that is I have a property involved in that.
Thank you very much. Any other separations or abstentions? Don't see any, so we'll move ahead. Is there let's see if we can get a motion on the non-separated items, and then we'll ask Mike Mayotte to give his report on the Eamon Park. But is there a motion relating to the non-separated items? Councilmember Shaw?
Yes, I move to approve the items of the consent agenda as submitted, with the exception of items moved for separation or abstention.
Thank you very much. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Boyette. Okay, thank you very much. Chris Kukulski, I'll turn it over to Mike Mayotte for his report, unless you have something in the way of an introduction.
No, I see Mike is there. Obviously, we've got a great working relationship with him and his team. So looking forward to just seeing the highlights of the year. So thank you, Mike, for taking the time to be with us tonight.
Thank you, Chris. Mayor, City Council, it's my privilege to be able to address you this evening. I do have a short PowerPoint. If I can have a share at the end of this, I can give you some pictures of the updates. I'll give you just a quick narrative. During 2020, we had an abbreviated spring scheduled due to COVID-19. We were able to serve Billings United Soccer Club and Real Billings Soccer Club. The Montana High School lacrosse tournament was canceled. The Magic City Classic was rescheduled for the summer. We did keep the park open, maintaining COVID protocols for the citizens throughout these seasons. As summer approached, we hosted the annual Magic City Classic Soccer Tournament, Big Sky State Games, and Billings United Soccer programs adhering to COVID-19 restrictions. In August, we provided training and match space for School District 2, Billings Catholic Central, Billings United Fall Program, Real Billings Fall Program, Yellowstone Soccer Association, and Yellowstone Adult Soccer League. We also hosted School District 2's high and middle school cross-country meets, Billings Central cross-country meet, and the Laurel High School cross-country meet. The Far West Division 2 cross-country meet hosted by MSUB and the Frontier Conference Championship cross-country meet were canceled due to COVID-19. In agreement with Yellowstone Adult Soccer Association, we took over the programming of the Weeknight Adult Soccer League. Our financial recap of 2020, we had revenues of $199,789, expenses of $202,460 without depreciation, for a net loss of $2,672. Would note we received a CARES Act grant of $12,500 and Montana COVID relief grant of $19,900 for a total of $32,400 in grants. Our budget for 2021, you've had that budget has been provided to you. We're taking a very conservative approach sans pandemic. We anticipate net income of $23,000 for the year. We do not have any capital projects or purchases planned for the year. On the fees front, we're keeping the fees the same since we started about 6 years ago, with the exception of adding a premium of $10 per hour for the lights, which is our cost. We have set an evening schedule for lights based upon sunset monthly to be consistent with light usage. The turf field sinking fund, as we promised, we put $25,000 a year into the sinking fund, and we were able to do that in 2020. With our cash reserves and a budgeted $23,000 net income for 2021, we'll meet that obligation again in 2021. This is the part that I really wanted to talk to you about tonight, our significant improvements. Our concessions remodel, we spent $35,662 on the remodel. We removed all the old particle board cupboards and replaced with stainless steel. We removed rotting exterior lower wall and replaced the steel siding. We closed off the east and west serving windows with steel siding on the exterior. Other significant improvements include partnering with Phillips Conical 66 on a scoreboard for the turf field. Phillips Conical was gracious in granting us $25,000, and we had to come up with another $11,435 for a total of $36,435 to get the scoreboard in. The turf field was authorized by the City Council and funded by tax increment funds from South Billings Urban Renewal Association, was completed during the first weeks of August. The field had been used by the following organizations for scheduled activities: Billings Catholic Central High School Soccer, Billings School District 2 cross-country soccer matches, cross-town soccer matches, Billings United Soccer Club, Real Billings Soccer Club, Yellowstone Soccer Association, Yellowstone Adult Soccer Association, Billings West Bandits Lacrosse. When an employee of Amen Park Development Council is present, the gates to the turf field are open for general public use. Amen Park Development Council installed a site-to-site wireless internet connection, which allows Billings Central and Billings School District 2 to live stream their soccer matches. Amen Park Development Council would like to thank the Mayor, City Council, Billings Park and Recreation, and the South Billings Urban Renewal Association for their funding and support of the turf project. If I could have a screen share, I would give you some quick slides. So on your screen right now, you should be seeing, this is a picture of the west side of the concession stand. The east side looks the same. As you can see on the lower half in the vertical striping, this was the old plywood that was replaced and now sealed up on the outside. And with cooperation with Parks Department, we thought this design of having vertical and horizontal look best on the building. This is an angled shot of the front, just again to show you on the lower end. This was plywood that was in here, finished on the outside. Water had seeped in over the years and it had been rotted, had to be replaced. On the inside, it's a shot looking at the east side of the wall. We took out all the cabinetry, put stainless steel in. You'll notice that there's a white melamine board, not melamine, I'm sorry, it's a fiberglass board that's up. It's all washable. It meets and exceeds all the standards for food service. It created a lot of extra storage for us in the front, makes things much more efficient. Pepsi was grand enough to give us a new pop machine as well. It's giving you another shot from the other side. You can see how we have that same fiberglass board underneath the whole front now, so we should not have any rotting issues. And we have all stainless steel line in the front. We put in a coffee machine. Anybody that, we have a lot of people that love that espresso, and so we added that in. You can see that right to your left. And also, again, you can see on the west wall, you can see how we've gained all this extra space by removing those old cabinetries and get our serving areas set up. The turf field. This is the southeast corner of Amon Park before the turf field. That was day one. They brought a big drill out there and drilled a hole and put 4 of those stands in the concrete pillars for the lights. Thanks to the city planning department, I think they ran their drone for us. That's what it looks like today on a nice day. Not quite today with the snow, but that's what the whole stadium looks like, fitting into the park very nicely. We have a 500-seat stadium on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side, we have area for the teams. Nice picture at night. It's very, very beautiful looking stadium at the night. A little shot of the Billings refinery scoreboard. It's a very efficient, well-designed turf field. And you can kind of notice we have red markings, that's lacrosse. The blue markings, we have smaller soccer fields going left and right, and the white are our full-size soccer fields. So that's what I wanted to show you. I'd be glad to take any questions anybody has from the council or the mayor and city staff.
Thank you, Mike. Great report. Appreciate everything that your organization is doing. That's all exciting. Any questions for Mike? Councilmember Rewalt.
I don't have a question, but I just got to agree with you, Mayor. They're doing an outstanding job there. At one time, it was run pretty poorly, and they've brought it back up, and it's a shining spot now in the city of Billings. So keep up the good work, Mike.
Thank you, sir.
Very good. Thank you much. Anything else? Don't see anything else, Mike. So we'll see you in a year.
Thank you very much. Good night, evening.
Good evening. Stay warm. Okay, we do have a motion on the floor for approval of the non-separated items. Is there a discussion or other questions for staff about any of those items? Councilmember Rewalt.
Thank you, Mayor. I got several questions on several different ones, but we'll start with B1. This would probably be for Debbie Melling, probably. They got the cost, and they had it budgeted for 3.9 million, and that leaves 1.4 million remaining. Is that going to be added into an increase in sewer fees this year, or where's the 1.4 million going to come from?
Debbie Melling.
Thank you, Councilmember Ewalt. The money is coming from our work order 2101, which is actually our sewer rehab project. The reason that it's more expensive and the reason we're using that money is we're dropping the influent lines, and then we're building a portion of the influent lines in order to increase the slope, and we'll have less maintenance for it. So it's really partially a rehab and partially the lift station project. So we're using both funds.
Follow up, please, Mayor.
Please.
So that means you're going to do less reconstruction on other sewer lines around town because you're putting 1.4 into that project?
So the project that we're doing this year on rehab is those lines. We're doing all the lines through the metro this year, those big influent lines, the 48-inch and the 60-inch. And so this is, we're just, the two projects we were trying to figure out how best to build them. So really it came down to constructability versus how we funded them and how we budgeted them. But it's the same work that will get done.
Okay, thank you, Debbie.
Councilmember Ewald, you had another item?
Yep, on Debbie's there. We'll just keep going with her on the missing sidewalk on B2. So last year we didn't do any missing sidewalk, did we? Or just a really small amount? Because I see some of the last year's stuff is on this year's. So the money that you would have used last year, are you going to double that and do more sidewalks this year? Or are you just going to catch up what you didn't do last year and not add anything to it? And then is the Boulder sidewalk going to the school over there by Boulder Avenue, Arrowhead School, is that going to be anything done with that one?
Okay, thank you. Yes. So last year we passed the resolution to do these missing sidewalks, and then we bid it late in the season, which I think most of you probably remember. So this is just the second bid of all that same work that we were planning last year. We did do a project last year because we had several tripping hazards that were in that first contract, and we wanted to get those done. So we did a very small project last fall to get those done. This project is a remainder of that. And then we will be doing a summer project that will include Boulder. So we're going to try to get quite a bit of concrete work done this year in 2 different projects.
All righty. Thank you.
Thank you. Other discussion on the motion or questions for staff on the non-separated items?
Can I keep going?
Yeah, probably.
I'm just running down the line here.
Okay.
1E is an Edward. And that's the inner belt loop part. Way back when Larry Brewster used to be on the council, he made an initiative that we should get the right-of-way purchased. And we do have the money now. We've got the guarantee of for the build grant. So why are we not getting the right-of-way purchase? So when all the paperwork is signed, we can start construction and stay on schedule?
I don't know who's best. Debbie's got her camera on. So Debbie, you want to take a stab at that one?
Sure. We are working on updating the appraisals. The last appraisals we had were about 8 years ago. So we need updated appraisals, and then we will be starting the offers for that right of way. We've been in discussions with each of the property owners again since the build grant since we were notified of the build grant. So we're working very, very, very carefully to get through to that point.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Ewald, did you have another we'll call it the last one, we'll go to others, or Councilmember Neese, I see has his hand up.
Yep. You don't mind, I'd like to ask a question about the current issue that Frank brought up.
That sounds good. Councilmember Neese.
Thank you. Debbie, just a quick follow-up to your response on the appraisals. Do you know when those appraisals can we expect those to come before the council for approval, for purchase?
Sure. The appraisals are probably another 2 months out for us to get those appraisals. And then we'll incorporate those into right-of-way agreements. That's what we use to start negotiations with the property owners. As long as it takes us to negotiate, that's when we'll bring them to you. Normally on a project like that, we would bring them all at one time. But in this case, we'll probably bring them as we get them all negotiated.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yep, I got more questions.
All right, Councilmember Ewald, I'm just going to ask others if they've got something. We'll come back to you, assuming if they don't.
I'm good.
Are there any other questions from other council members or discussion before we go back to Councilmember Ewald? Don't see anything. Councilmember Ewald.
All right, on 1M is in Michael. This streetlight maintenance districts. I guess we get Debbie again.
Good thing for me, we have Debbie.
So we're getting rid of District 280 and making that 330. What kind of financial impact to the existing property owners on 280 will the 330, will there be any change, or how does that work?
So I'm going to go back and make sure that I'm saying this right. But the reason we're adjusting 280 is there's several lights on 32nd that really belong in the district with 32nd instead of Gable. And so what this does is we're going to remove lights and property owners. And so the goal is to keep this at less than 3% change so that we do not have to modify District 280. Well, it'll modify it because the people are coming out and the lights are coming out, but it won't change it more than 3%, so we don't have to get a vote of 280. So it'll be a very, very small adjustment.
Okay, and then I got one other question on that. And back when we were doing King Avenue East, and I asked the question, how come not everybody on the south side of King Avenue was incorporated in the streetlight district? And you said you could only have to pay for one streetlight district, but yet on this one here, you say corner lots are going to have to pay 2 streetlight districts. So if you couldn't do it then, why can you do it now?
It comes down to benefit. So if the property benefits, and we can show the benefit in both districts, which usually happens in a commercial situation, industrial, some of those types of properties, then we can put them in 2 districts. But if they are not benefiting from both districts, then we can't put them in both. It really, everyone we have to look at and determine benefit.
So there's not really a strict policy on double charging.
Yeah, it really does come down to whether it benefits.
Okay, and then I got a comment on your send out your I don't know what it's called for the vote, and on section 9, and I don't know if this has to do with you or who it has to do with, but it says that on the 8th day of March 2021 at 5:30 p.m. at the city council, or at the council chambers of City Hall in said city, the city council intends to create the district and hear protests against proposed maintenance. We should change that to virtual or library if that's the case, but we don't want to be sending people to the city council chambers to protest when we're not going to be there, do we?
I need to look at that. That's language we've been using in all of our notices. Let me read it again and see what that says. I'll get back on, or I'll send you an update. Is that okay if I just look at that and then send you what we will be sending out, modify it as necessary?
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
I only got one more.
All right, before you go, Councilor, let me just clarify that. Is there any concern on the part of the council to give staff discretion to potentially change that language about the location of a protest in the discretion of staff? It'd be my suggestion that we have a consensus that they have that authority. Maybe that's clear anyway, but does anybody have any concern with that? Councilmember, otherwise I think we should communicate that to staff. Councilmember Neese.
I would like to hear from our city attorney about that first.
Okay. And Gina, I guess the question is, do you have any problems with that, or do we need to provide that authorization maybe through an amendment of the current motion to be a little more formal about it? But Gina, if you can comment.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. I believe that would be appropriate if you all simply indicated that there was the consensus that staff can make the appropriate amendment to add language to, if it's going to be a virtual meeting, to provide the opportunity for those protests in a separate manner other than obviously council chamber. So if you're comfortable with that, I think that's appropriate. If you're more comfortable making a formal motion, you can certainly do that.
Okay, thank you. I think if anybody has any concern, we should make a motion, err on that side. But if it's a clear consensus, maybe we're okay there too. Councilmember Neese, that was your question. Do you want to follow up or have any further thoughts?
No, I just want to hear it. I'm okay with that then. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
We're just going to handle that through the staff, and they're going to renote it.
If that's the unanimous agreement of the council, yes. If there's any concern, I suggest we have a formal vote. But I think we all agree.
I think it's far enough away that they can. Are they sending letters out to all the property owners to explain this to them, that it can be incorporated in the letters, or is that too late?
We have not sent letters yet. We will send those as modified. If council allows it, we will update the letter and send those out.
Any problem with that as long as it's noted?
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Councilor Ewald, go ahead.
Okay, this is for Debbie again. Debbie, quit turning yourself off. Okay, this is on 1N, and it's for the West End water plant, you're asking permission to go from hard bid, I assume, to 3 other options. Could you explain the reason for this? And if one of the 3 is better or worse, or if they're all better than hard bid, and why?
Sure. Thank you for the question. So the industry is really moving for this types of projects. The industry is really moving away from the traditional design bid build, which we used to do for many, many years. State law now allows us to use 2 different or several different alternative delivery methods. One is CMGC, which is construction management general contractor. The other is design build. They both have pros and cons to them, as does traditional design bid build. A lot of times design build can be faster, sometimes more expensive. CMGC, we found you can get faster, and a lot of times you can get more bang for your buck, which I think I put in an email earlier to the response to this question. The whole goal behind both of those types of delivery is to have the contractor on your team with you. So instead of us making assumptions and putting together a package that goes out for bid, we pull the contractor in with us and we work through the project together. And basically we can make better decisions as we're moving through it. They can get bids. So for any part of the project that we want to do, we can get bids during the project. If we decide we want to look at different pipe types, we can send out a bid for ductile iron pipe versus PVC. And we can look at the pros and cons, and we actually have those dollars in our hands at the time we do it. So it just allows us to make better decisions.
Follow up, Mayor, please.
Okay.
So when you do this, Debbie, are you going to go for each, there's like 3 separate parts, the reservoirs, the water plant, and then the water supply line. Are you going to send those out all individual, or are you going to try and do a package with all 3 of them first, and then if that doesn't work, go to a...
We would definitely do individual. Yeah. The type of contractor who would build that plant is completely different than the one that would do the pipeline or the reservoir. So we want to make sure that we're inviting the types of contractors that specialize in each of those projects.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I'm done.
Can I turn off my camera?
All in favor of letting Debbie turn off her camera? Yes, close enough. Any other questions for staff or discussion on the motion for approval of the non-separated items? If not, we'll proceed to a vote. All in favor of the motion for approval of the non-separated items, please raise your hand. Voting in favor are all members of the City Council. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. We'll go to the first separated item, which is item 1B2, which was separated for Councilmember Neese's abstention purposes. Work order 20-02, missing sidewalk miscellaneous. Is there a motion or discussion on this item? Councilmember Shaw.
Thank you. I move to approve item 1B2.
Thank you. And second. Thank you. Councilmember Boyette has the second. Discussion on the motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Motion is for approval. Consistent with the staff recommendation, we'll move to a vote then. All in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Voting in favor are all members of the City Council with the exception of Councilmember Neese, who abstained. Next item up was Councilmember Neese's 1C, Downtown Billings Traffic Study. Councilmember Neese, that was your separation. Would you like to begin our discussion?
I would like to begin the discussion. I've read through this thing quite a bit. There's a lot I like about this report, and I understand the different views, and the two-way streets. I'm fully supportive of that. I have some issues with some of the road diets throughout the project, so I'm sure this is going to pass the City Council, and so I don't have any problem with it passing. I think that I'm going to register a no vote just to realize that this is probably not a perfect plan, but I think a lot of the plan is good. So if you wouldn't mind, I'd make the motion to approve this, but as I said, I probably will be voting against this item.
Thank you very much. There is an obscure rule out there. I think allows you to vote against your own motion. I'm sorry, was your motion to approve or not to approve, Councilmember?
No, my motion would be to approve item 1C.
Okay, I think there's an obscure rule though that does not allow you to vote, to speak against your motion.
Oh, I'm sorry, then I will not make that motion.
Okay. Well, you've kind of already done the speaking, so I don't know if there's any great harm in that. But anyway, just to be clear, Councilmember Joy and Councilmember Shaw. So Councilmember Joy.
Thank you. I move we approve Downtown Billings Traffic Study Alternative Prioritization and Public Preference Plan.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Shaw with the second. So we do have a motion for approval. Further discussion. Councilmember Ewald.
Thank you, Mayor. Now, these are all going to be done supposedly in steps, and they'll all come back to council before anything gets done on them. Is that the way it works?
Chris and Debbie, Wyeth, maybe you can clarify. My understanding is the council already approved the moving forward with the TIF dollars on the two-way conversion on 29th and 30th, I believe, but with the exception of those, I assume Councilmember Ewald's correct, but Wyeth or Chris or
Let me say at the highest level, the appropriations haven't been made as of yet for any of the other projects. Wyeth, anything you'd add to that, or Scott?
That's correct. Yeah, and the next steps would be with either programming in the CIP for projects, if we found and accessed grant opportunities that we would bring forward, to apply for, and the council would be involved in that, or if a project like the one that the mayor and Chris just mentioned regarding the 29th and 30th, if we were to, if there was a proposal to access urban renewal funds from the downtown district or the East End district, that would also come through the process. So that's what I'm aware of for potential sources, and those would all be channeled through those processes, which end up going through council.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other discussion on the motion? Motion is for approval item 1C, Downtown Billings Traffic Study Alternative Prioritization Public Preference Plan. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Voting in favor are Council members Chiriky, Cole, Ronning, Joy, Yakowicz, Boyette, Brown, and Shaw. If voting in opposition, please raise your hand. Voting in opposition are Council members Neese and Ewald. Thank you very much. Next item up that was separated was item 1G, the amendment to the BUFSA agreement funding formula. Councilmember Ewald, that was your separation. Would you like to start us off? Councilmember Ewald, you are muted.
I got several questions on it. If Andy is there, I got some paperwork today said how the dispatch is kind of broken up, and $667,000 is paid by the county. If the county was not in the BUFSA, would they still be paying the $667,000 for all their other services that they have to get dispatched from on the dispatch?
Mayor, City Council, Councilmember Ewald, they are two separate contracts, two separate services. The county pays for the interlocal agreement for all services for 911 dispatch through the interlocal agreement.
Okay, so the remainder after the $667,000, how much of that is how many other entities share the remainder after the 667, almost 667,000 is taken out?
You're asking who pays for the 911 dispatch?
Who shares the cost of the rest of the dispatch?
Anybody who has a telephone helps pay for that in the county, as well as the City of Billings taxpayers largely. That would be through the public safety fund or public safety levies.
So is it split up between police and fire, or is it all fire?
It's all under the fire department.
Okay, so why are we taking the full bore out of the fire department budget and not including that in the 10.1% that the county pays. Why don't we just subtract the $667,000 that they pay? Because that's just like purchasing a fire truck. It's overhead, it's cost to maintain the service. And so they should be paying on that, just like they do for a fire truck, just like they do for water tenders, the whole works.
Sure. So the reason why I'm recommending it be removed is because the really two parts. The interlocal agreement is for that purpose, and it just happens to be that the fire department oversees dispatch and 911. That just as easily could be under police. And I think the appropriate place to handle any concerns with that would be with the interlocal agreement. And second, 911 dispatch provides a substantial service to police as well, which is not part of the BUFSA. So, and I haven't done any calculations to determine what portion is fire and emergency service related versus what portion is police related. But I think it wouldn't be proper to include the police portion in the BUFSA calculation.
So how much is actually left over? I had that figured out here someplace after you take that 600 out of there.
Probably about 2.4 million or so, 2.7, something like that.
So if you split that down the middle, then that would mean that there would be another $1 million at 10.1%, which would be another $100,000 for the city of Billings for the BUFSA. I don't know, when we're in tough times, we got to get as much money as we can, any place we can get it.
Mayor, what I would add is I think we are dealing with two different services that are provided regionally. So I think what I hear you asking about, Councilmember Ewald, is the equity or inequities in how we charge for 911 dispatch services, which are totally separate from fire services. So Annie and I have looked at it at a very high level. For BUFSA, we believe this is a fair and equitable share for fire services. I honestly have not gotten into the details of our interlocal agreement between the city and the county on 911 dispatch services, but in my past, they've not been separated by departments that get dispatched. So for instance, the ambulance service doesn't pay a separate fee. Each fire district doesn't pay a separate fee. It's a service that we provide. So I think you're really asking about two things that are separate interlocal regional services of the city, one for fire and one for 911 dispatch.
Councilmember Neese.
Thank you, Mayor. And Chris, this is one of the reasons I was asking in the emails about that, because I think they are two different agreements. And the last time that agreement was updated was in 2000. So, quite a while ago. And so I think that I guess it would be a priority to look through that agreement, find out what it is, and come back to the council with a recommendation of a modifying of that agreement. I would like to hope we can see that, what the city's recommended, before they take it to the county commissioners, so that we can have our input into it first. But I understand what Council Ewald is asking about, but I do agree with you, it's a separate one. But if we do need to take a look at that, there could be some inequities there that we need to adjust.
Thank you very much. I was going to make a similar suggestion. A copy of that for council members was distributed late this afternoon, I believe, by email. So take a look at it. I'm not sure if there must not be an expiration date, or that was very long if it went for 20 years, but everything should be looked at on a frequency sooner than 20 years, I assume. So anyway, there is no motion on this matter, but is there any other discussion or motion on item 1G? Councilmember Brown and Councilmember Ewald.
Thank you, Chris. We've got the ambulance, the fire, the police, the sheriff. Who else is included in that? And does that $667,000 include the sheriff dispatch as well from the county? That covers everything.
It's my understanding that that number from the county is for full dispatch of everything outside the city limits or city services, with the exception of Laurel. Laurel, I believe, has their own dispatch center for City of Laurel. So I think that is what's covering dispatch services outside of the City of Laurel and outside of the City of Billings. And I don't know that there are any other jurisdictions who contribute.
Okay. And AMR is part of their contract is the reason there's nothing there. That's all part of the contract with the city that we basically use them to go. Therefore, it's up to us to get them there, I would imagine.
Honestly, what I would say is, and Roy makes an excellent point. I mean, anytime these interlocal agreements should be reviewed every few years, and this one looks like it's been a while. I don't know the details of this one. I just would say we should analyze it for its equity and charging fairly between the jurisdictions, in this case, non-city or county, city. If we were dispatching other cities, we'd charge them too or include them in that discussion. But we should analyze that and determine between their payment, all of the revenue that comes in through our cell phones and our landlines, and this contribution, the three of them are the primary funding sources, making it a little bit more complex than BUFSA, frankly, as to where funding comes from and how should it be charged out. So we will take a look at this. It should be reviewed. And I couldn't tell you how close it is to maybe being spot on where it should be right now, or if it should be tweaked one way or the other.
Okay. And Mayor, just a comment. I know, I want to be mindful of, dropping a significant increase on the county as well. They're in the same boat we are. And I know that any significant drop on them is just, we're trying to work a relationship and everything else. And just a thought.
Thank you. Others, Councilmember Shaw.
Thank you. I move to approve item 1G.
We have a motion for approval. Second, Councilmember Chiricky. Okay, discussion on the motion. Motion is for approval. Councilmember Ewald.
Thank you, Mayor. For Andy again, what numbers are we using for this to calculate this? 2020 numbers or 2019?
Mayor, Councilmember Ewald, for the FY21 charge, we would be using FY20 actual expenses, actual data.
So that would be 1.7 million then, instead of the 1.6 that's in the handout or the 1G. You got 2019 in the 1G handout that we got, and the 2020 number is 1.7 million.
Mayor, Councilmember Ewald, the information in the fiscal impact was provided to give you some historical context about what it would have looked like had we used that at that time. I did notice that 2020 wasn't included in there. It would have been, I think, $370,000 more as well. But the bill for this year will total $1,646,610 as indicated in the staff memo. That is reduced slightly at the request of the county because it was such a large increase in 1 year. The calculated amount would have been $1.76 million. They asked if we could phase it in over 2 years, and our suggestion was to do 75% of the increase this year and then the full amount next year and going forward.
Okay, follow up then, Mayor.
Go ahead.
Okay, on term number 5 in the terms, it's got effective July 1, 2020. Should that read 2021, or are we going to charge them retroactive to July 1, 2020?
Mayor, Councilmember Ewald, I believe the term is correct. It should be retroactive. We've actually already sent them a bill based upon this amount. In fact, It was my position that the contract didn't need amending because it didn't actually spell out the funding formula, but the county commissioners wanted it in there. So that's why we're bringing it back to you.
So that would be retroactive for the 75%, and then as of July 1, 2021, they would be paying 100% of the calculated amount.
Correct.
Okay.
And that bill will go to them December of this year, so in 11 months.
Okay, so then another follow-up, please, Mayor.
Sure, then we'll go to Councilmember Neese.
Okay. I don't know if I agree with this statement, and it's a couple times in here where it says within the BUFSA, the same level as such services are provided to properties within the corporate limits of the city. So there's no way that we can have the same level in the BUFSA as we do in the corporate limits of the city. And then they go on and the standard of performance on number 10 to provide the same level of service as the BUFSA is provided in the city residents. Same level of service shall mean that all resources available to the fire department to deliver all services offered to the residents of the city shall be available to the residents of BUFSA. Well, a good example of something that isn't is fire hydrants. We got fire hydrants in the city, they don't. I think we need to do away with the same level and come up with another term in there, because somebody gets a big fire loss, they could probably decide it's time to sue the city because it says same level of service, and it took us 8 minutes longer to get there than it would if it would have been 6 blocks from the fire station with a fire hydrant.
Andy, Gina, Chris, anybody want to respond to that before we go to other discussion?
I would say we didn't get into the only language, as Andy said, we did not approach this amendment that it was necessary. We approached that the formula of equity for funding was our target. I didn't go back. The contract had just been negotiated before I got here. I think not long before I got here. So we were kind of making this midstream adjustment. I think if we want to get into negotiating language changes throughout descriptions, if we think it's critical enough, if Gina would guide us that way, we'd propose amendments, as early as next year. Otherwise, when the contract is up, I think we'd get deeper into language adjustments. Okay.
I guess from my perspective, there's a certain issue that we want to address right now, and I think we should do it, but certain sympathy with Councilmember Ewald's point. In a perfect world, maybe there'd be a little more detailed language acknowledging that there may be differences in actual level of service just as within the city, there are different levels. We're still providing the same services. Fire department doesn't provide hydrants. That's up to developers. So I'm not too concerned about that, but there's definitely a general difference in response times. And we could, in a perfect world, acknowledge that. But so put that on the list maybe for a future revision, I guess would be my comment. Councilmember Neese, you had something, Councilmember Ronning?
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to go back to the item that Councilman Ewald talked to Andy about, was the amounts changes and 75% less. So Andy, if you could just give me the difference between last year and this year if we went at 100%, and then how much are we giving up that first year then?
So the difference between last year and this year, if I understand your question correctly, it would have been $454,000 less last year. We are giving up $113,700 of that this year.
This year, okay. So if we were to have changed that to 100% tonight, your bill would have to have been amended?
Yeah, we send it in halves though, so it's there's still a substantial portion remaining.
Okay. And so the county just couldn't, they felt they couldn't take the entire $113,000 more?
That's my understanding. The county assesses this to property owners on their property tax bills, and they didn't assess the full amount necessary. We had warned them back in March that we intended to do this, and the county bills went out without adjustment.
Oh, I see. Okay, that makes sense. All right, thank you very much.
Councilor Running.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify for the public and make sure that I understand this accurately as well. So prior to this coming to City Council and being on our consent agenda, these negotiations and discussions all happen with the county prior, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so this is nothing, we're not surprising the county with anything that we may vote on tonight unless we change something in this, correct?
Correct. As the memo outlines, the conversation started in March of 2020.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Just wanted to clarify that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Further discussion, Councilmember Yakovich, and then Councilmember Councilmember Ewell.
Thank you, Honor. And Council, I'm going to support this motion. I just want to thank the county for negotiating and Mr. Kukulski and staff. Especially, I want to thank Mr. Ewald because he initiated this a while ago and fought for it. Really took the bull by the horns. So thank you, Mr. Ewald.
Absolutely, and there's definitely a significant increase that will be coming to the city as a result of this. Councilmember Ewald.
Okay, I want to get back to that same level. In this day of litigation, in 2 years from redoing this contract, I think it's probably pretty important that we change something, and I think all we'd have to do is change the word level with services, because then we give them the same service, but not at the same level. And all you'd have to do is go through the contract, cross out the level word and put services in there. And I think it would, but to me, it's pretty scary that it says same level, because I'll guarantee you can't give them the same level in the BUFSA as you get in the city.
Thank you very much. Any other discussion on the motion before we proceed to vote? Councilmember Gina Dahl, City Attorney, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to point out in the contract, Council Member Ewald, the same level of service is defined in the next sentence under subsection 10. You're nodding your head, so you obviously read that. So it means that all resources available to the fire department to deliver all services offered to the residents of the city of Billings shall be available to deliver the services to the residents of BUFSA. This contract was reviewed by Chief Rash, and I don't believe that the phrase "same level of services" same level of service was intended to imply or indicate that response times, for example, were going to be equal or exactly the same. I don't think that is at all contemplated here. So I think that same level of service simply means that all resources available to the fire department will be available to deliver the services to the residents of BUFSA. I don't know if that helps at all, but we can certainly explore more amendments to that language in the future.
All right, thank you. I read number 10 too, and that sort of answered the question, but I wasn't real happy with it. I don't like going in an executive session.
That makes 11 of us or more. Thank you. Very good. Any other discussion, Councilmember Neese?
I guess this section does bother me about the same level of service. I guess I would ask if, because it is defined there, if that can be changed by our city attorney to just, provide the same, what you say, Gina, same resources. So that way, even though it's used throughout the document, the same level, we're saying it means the same resources. Or maybe even a indication that the response time will be different because they're in the county. So I don't, again, like we did on the other one, we can sure make an amendment to have the staff change that, or we can get a consensus, or we can just ignore it and pass it as is.
We can, as long as it's this is only germane if it's relevant to our immediate issue, which is the approval of this agreement. The council could agree to reject the agreement on the condition we go back for further negotiations. But of course, that might give the county an opportunity to also renegotiate what seems to be something they're in agreement with on the dollar amounts. But Councilmembers Brown and Tricky.
Thank you, Your Honor. I mean, I'd like to give the opportunity to make an amended motion, but I'm going to call question.
Okay, so we'll proceed to vote on whether to vote. I guess that's the motion. We need a second on the calling the question motion. Councilmember Boyette. Okay. In favor of proceeding to a vote, please raise your hand. Voting in favor are council members Tricky, Ronning, Neese, Joy, Boyette, Brown, Shaw, I guess Cole. So that is the sufficient supermajority. We will proceed to a vote on the underlying motion, which is for approval of item 1G, consistent with the staff recommendation, no other amendments. All in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Voting in favor are Councilmembers Tricky, Cole, Ronning, Neese, Joy Yakowicz, Ward, or Councilmember Boyette, Councilmember Brown, and Shaw. If voting in opposition, please raise your hand. Voting in opposition, Councilmember Ewalt. Motion passes. Thank you very much. That then concludes item 1G, and we go to our final separated item, which is bills for the week of January 4. Councilmember Brown will be abstaining. Is there a motion? Councilmember Boyette.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that we approve item 101.
Thank you. Second, Councilmember Joy. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Voting in favor are all members of the City Council. Motion passes unanimously with the exception of Councilmember Brown, who abstained. That then concludes item 1 and brings us to item number 2, our only item on our regular agenda tonight. Tony, would you read item number 2?
Mayor,
Walt's trying to say something.
don't we have to do 102?
Oh, no, that was not some.
Okay, yep, my mistake.
Yep. So that was included in the first motion, so we're good. So Tony, go ahead and read item number 2.
Item number 2, public hearing and first reading ordinance amending BMCC section 26-800 dental amalgam. Staff recommends approval. Action, approval or disapproval of staff recommendation.
Thank you very much. Debbie Melling has a presentation for us on mercury and fillings. It makes me my whole tingle and not in a pleasant way to even think about this discussion, but go ahead.
All right. Dental amalgam. Yes. I've got a presentation I'll throw up here. While I'm doing that, I wanted to let you know that we have Boris Krizak, who's our environmental engineer with the city, is here with us tonight. And so if anything gets too technical, I'm going to ask Boris to jump in. This is kind of his world. So can everyone see my screen there?
Yes.
Okay. So there is dental amalgam right there. So the discussion tonight is about an ordinance that we want to add into city code regarding dental amalgam and basically dentist office throughout the city. So why are we doing it? The EPA issued a new rule back in 2017 that said by 2020 that there were certain rules that dentist office needed to comply with. And we'll kind of go through that a little bit here. But the whole reason behind it is because of mercury contamination. We do not have mercury in our wastewater. So this isn't a big concern for us. We've not had a problem, but adding this code section allows us to address it if we ever do have a problem. And what the EPA does is they give us, we're what they call the control authority, meaning that the EPA sets rules out and then we are the ones that have to basically put codes put sections in our own city code and then also get the compliance. And I'll discuss that a little bit further. But this article, and I won't go through the details of the article, but basically, like I said, it's a new section in our city code. It falls under our wastewater section, and it generally, the goal again is to reduce amalgam in the waste flow. It puts in place some waste management practices, specifically separators for the dental offices. It talks about records retention, telling the dentists that they need to maintain their records showing that they're maintaining their systems, and also compliance. What happens if you aren't doing this? And it gives us the authority to inspect it. As the city, we can go into those offices and make sure that those facilities are working. Any violation is basically a violation of the Clean Water Act, which is where the EPA set out the dental amalgam rule. But this is the way the city gets involved is EPA will hold us responsible. We are what is defined as the control authority. So the city of Billings, as the wastewater authority, we are the responsible party as far as the EPA is concerned. So the reason we put these issues into our city code is that we need to be able to go into dental practices and say, you have to meet this, you have to meet that. If you don't, this is what happens, because EPA is going to hold us responsible. So the code section that discusses the compliance and what the violations, the process is our existing municipal code 26614. So we basically are putting new requirements on them with the same compliance that we currently have in place for several other contaminants in our system. Councilmember Neese did ask about the resources that we would need in order to put this program in place. We have already done the collection of the one-time certified statements. That's the biggest part of this. We need every dentist office in town and all the new ones to give us this one-time certification that says, I have a separator and I'll maintain it and we'll do all of this work. Now, since we already have those certified statements, we basically need to catch new dental practices, make sure that we're part of that process. And then we're somewhat reactive. As I said, we don't have problems with mercury, so we don't go out and look at the amalgam separators. We will be reactive. If we have a mercury problem, we'll track it down and we'll figure out who's discharging to our system. So the next steps in this process, we'll have a public hearing tonight. And if approved, if the council approves this after that, we'll have a second reading, the second meeting in February. And if that's approved, the ordinance would be in effect March 22nd of this year. So most of you saw the comments that Mayor Cole sent and Councilmember Neese about the change to the section. Tonight, if you want to approve this, I did put language on here. We had some formatting changes in the attachment to the council memo. We had the language of the ordinance. We did not have it in the right format. So when you see the second reading, the format will be proper, so it has the right signature blocks. In the definition section, which is 801, it calls out new sources and existing sources. We want to change that to say new dental amalgam source and existing dental amalgam source. We don't want any confusion with previous sections talking about sources. And then we'll add the definition of the POTW as requested. So if after we have discussion in a public hearing, you want to approve this, I did add here the motion, which would basically just add the words, including changes recommended by staff, which are these three changes that I just talked about. So I can answer questions, or Boris Krizak from our office can answer questions as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Questions for Debbie. Councilmember Neese and Councilmember Boyette.
Thank you, Mayor. Debbie, so yeah, we don't have a mercury problem here, which is good. And you mentioned that if you did, you could trace it down. So what is the what do you think what does that involve? And is there a lot of cost to that once you see that? And I was assuming you'd have to trace it down regardless of what this ordinance was in place or not. Is that correct?
You're exactly correct. If we see mercury, we'll have to track it down regardless. This will give us the ability to go into dentist's office and actually look at their separators and also inspect their records to make sure it's been maintained properly.
Mayor, just a quick follow-up.
Please.
I'm assuming if we get mercury in our in our water, that there would be a hefty fine from the EPA that we would have to pay?
If we start having discharge violations with mercury, yes, we would be open to the same kind of fees that the penalties we currently pay. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Boyette and Councilmember Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. Debbie, I guess in the past 50 years, are you aware of any of our dentists that have violated this proposed ordinance? I mean, do you think that's been an issue at all?
It hasn't been an issue. Like I said, we haven't been seeing mercury. Separators haven't always been required. This rule, like I said, went in 2017 as a reaction to some areas that are having problems. We haven't seen that. So I don't anticipate problems, no.
Okay, Mayor, can I have a follow-up?
Please.
So once this ordinance is adopted, would we be notifying all the dentists in town by sending them an email or a copy of the ordinance, or is it their problem to understand what it is?
So we've already collected the one-time compliance from them. So every dentist in town already has had to submit that to us because the EPA already directed us to do that. So that work is already done. This will really affect the new dentist office, and then the existing dentist office, we will notify them if there's any issues. And they were notified of the requirement to maintain their records.
Thank you very much. Councilor Brown?
Asked and answered again, Mayor.
Okay. Great minds think alike, something like that. Other questions for Debbie or for Boris? Just a reminder that if there is a motion for approval, it should, in my opinion, make some reference to the 3 technical changes that Debbie recommends be made to the draft that was sent out, changing the format, changes the signature block a little bit, changing to specifically reference dental amalgam source, and then adding the definition of publicly owned treatment works. Any other discussion or comments before we look for a motion? Councilmember Ewald.
Thank you, Mayor. Debbie, this is not really related to the dentist, but don't the refineries have a high incidence of mercury, or do they get it all separated before it comes to us?
Sorry, I was talking and muted. That's what I'm going to let Boris answer. Each of our dischargers do have pretreatment requirements they have to meet, and they're all individual. So Boris can talk for a minute about any mercury in our industrial pretreatment.
Council, no, we have not seen any mercury values that would be of any concern from the refineries. We do have a monitor on a monthly, weekly, and daily basis. So we do get details on their discharge, and we have not seen any. We don't have any concern with those discharges with regards to mercury.
Thank you. Any other questions for Boris or Debbie, or is there a motion?
Public comment, Mayor.
Follow up, please, Mayor.
Yes, I appreciate the reminder. Thank you.
Follow up, please, Mayor.
Yeah, Councilor Ewald.
Thank you, Mayor. So if this mercury happened to slip through and get into our WRF plant, do you have something there that will stop it from getting in the river, or do we not have anything that works to eliminate the mercury if it gets that far?
Councilman Ewald, we do sample for mercury at the WRF. There is a very low concentration. It's in the 0.05 micrograms per liter, so very low values. The treatment plant does treat that volume, and it discharges at a 0.0058 micrograms per liter. So our treatment plant does have the ability to remove that small amount that exists in our waste stream, and we are well within our compliance on the discharge.
Okay.
All right, first.
Thank you. We will go to a public comment soon for anybody who wants to call the number 237-6196. Council, anything else before we go to public comment? After public comment, you'll have an opportunity for further discussion, motion, or questions. But while we're waiting, please feel free to pose anything. That number again, and we will open it up now for public hearing on item 2. For anybody who calls 237-6196, 237-6196. Please keep your comments to less than 3 minutes. Tell us your name and your address. And please mute or turn off your television or your computer or your other screen, because our meeting is slightly ahead of what you're hearing. And it's very confusing if you do not do so. The number again for public hearing, 237-6196. That is a local Montana number. Anything else from council while we wait for those calls? Councilmember Neese.
Thank you, Mayor. Debbie, be real quick on this. So it was said there's a little bit of mercury in the discharge, and then before it goes to river, there's less. And so we're collecting that. What is happening? And again, they're small numbers, so I can't fathom what that is. Maybe you can put that in better perspective. But what amount is mercury is actually collected, and then what happens to that? What do we do with that mercury once it's collected or captured? Is that just put in our landfill?
Councilman Neese, I believe that ends up in our biosolids, which is the solids that gets collected during the process at the WRF. And yes, taken to the landfill.
Okay, and Mayor, quick follow-up on that?
Sure.
I'm assuming because of the small amount, that's not hazardous to the landfill or anything else that it's going to?
Correct. It's not hazardous.
Okay.
The levels that we're seeing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Just to clarify, Tony, do we have anybody who has called 237-6196 for our public hearing?
I have not received any calls.
Okay, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing then and move on to further council discussion or motion. Councilmember Ewald.
Thank you, Mayor. Now that you brought up hauling the solids to the landfill, and the plan at the landfill is to take these solids and mix them with the organic matter that they get, leaves and branches and stuff, and start making fertilizer. I think that's what the plan is to do when you start putting it for mulching your gardens and that. Or is it, I mean, mercury seems like it's really a bad thing. They say if you fish in this lake, don't eat the fish. So if you put the mulch on your garden, you don't eat the vegetables. I don't know. That's just brought up a whole new question.
Point of order, Your Honor.
Go ahead, Councilmember Brown. I assume your point is that it's just not germane.
We're kind of getting off the dentist mercury thing here.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'll agree with that. We may need to come back to it, but just a reminder for anybody in the public who's listening, what I heard is what it goes back is about 1/10 of what it came to us in the Yellowstone River. So if we've got a problem, we've really got a problem with what's in the Yellowstone River because it's 10 times the quantity. So you shouldn't use that for irrigation or fishing. But I'm no expert on this. But let's move on. Councilmember Shaw.
Thank you. Having conducted a public hearing, considered written and spoken public testimony, I move to approve BMCC Section 26-800 dental amalgam as recommended by staff, and Mayor, to your point, including the 3 additions that you listed out earlier. I won't repeat them, but for the record.
Thank you very much. Is there a second? Councilmember Neese. Okay, thank you very much. We have a motion for approval consistent with the staff recommendation, including those 3 technical amendments. Further discussion on the motion. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Don't see any, so we'll proceed to a vote. All in favor of the motion for approval, please raise your hand. Voting in favor are Council members Tricky, Cole, Ronning, Neese, Joy Yakowicz, Boyette, Ewalt, Shaw, and Brown. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. That concludes our regular agenda then, and leaves us with public comment on non-agenda items. So please call this number if you'd like to comment on anything that was not on our agenda tonight. That number is the same number we've had all night, 237-6196, area code 406-237-6196. Call immediately, and please keep your comments to less than 3 minutes. Tell us your name and your address. Mute or turn off your computer screen or your television if you'd like to comment this evening by calling 237-6196. This is your opportunity to comment on anything that was not on our agenda tonight. 237-6196. We'll delay briefly and then ask Tony whether anybody has called 237-6196.
I have not received any phone calls.
Okay, thank you, Tony. If you get something in the next few seconds, please let us know. Otherwise, we will close our public comment period on non-agenda items and move on. Any items of council initiative before our adjournment tonight? Councilmember Boyette?
I know this is Gina Dahl's first time as the official attorney, but I'd like her, if she's still on, just to say hello to all of us.
Thank you very much. Gina, the floor is yours. It's 7:12. We've usually go till about 9:30, so you got about 2 hours before people will shoot you.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. There's plenty of time for me to talk since you guys have gotten done so early tonight. I hope that you guys can keep this up. But thank you all. I appreciate all of the congratulations and the nice sentiments that you've all sent me. I look forward to working with you all more closely in the future, and I'm always available by email or phone. Give me a call whenever you have questions.
Thank you very much. I think we all applaud. That took less than 60 seconds. So that's great. Thank you. Councilmember Ewald.
Thank you, Mayor. I got a question for Chris, which could turn into an initiative if I don't get the right answer.
Oh, great.
I would, after our discussion tonight on the dispatch center, is the staff going to look into fairness of distribution of costs in that and bring it back to us in one of the near future meetings, or do I need to make an initiative to have that forced to be done?
Without the requirement of an initiative, we will look at the interlocal agreement for dispatch services and report back as to whether we think there's any inequities there or not. We'll report back either way. I would give us at least 30 days to do that, but we'll look into it, and if we think it should go either way, let you know.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Ronning?
Thank you. Not an initiative, but just really wanted to say thank you to the snowplow drivers out there working 12-hour shifts, 24 hours a day right now. That's a big, heavy job, and it hit us all at once this year. So just really wanted to give them a shout out. That's a big job for Billings. So thank you to all of those drivers out there.
Amen. Thank you, especially over the weekend. Chris, did you want to say something there?
Yeah, thank you, Penny, for that reminder. Also, I would ask, take the opportunity, if you can get your car off the street, please do, because it is so much easier. It's faster and it's better quality work, less risk for the drivers if they're not dodging cars. So I know many parts of town that's not possible, but there are also many parts of town that have driveways and other things. So please do that. It'll help us get the job done more quickly and a better quality job. Thank you, Penny, for that reminder, and Debbie and her crews who are out there working tirelessly.
Thank you. Councilmember Neese.
Yeah, sorry, along the same lines. Don't forget we have that Snow Buddies program. So if you haven't, if you need your sidewalk or something done, call the Snow Buddies program. And if you see your neighbors that hasn't been done, go out and do it. And if you enjoy doing it, I love throwing snow. So that's what I do. So and just enjoy it. So thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. And the Snow Buddies phone number, I believe, is on the city website under Public Works, and maybe even at the sort of the landing page of the on occasion. But if you search on the website for Snow Buddies, I'm hoping it'll come up on the city website for that phone number, or just call the general number for pretty much anybody at the city administration or Public Works, and we'll get you that phone number, or council members. Most of us have it. So thank you very much. Anything else before we adjourn? Don't see anything else. Council members and Councilmember Purington, if you're out there, hope you're doing well. We are adjourned.